Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in just a few moments. You probably noticed that I have spotlighted myself because we're live streaming this Zoom meeting on YouTube. But you can always select the gallery view in your upper right if you prefer to see the wider community. So feel free to do whatever works for you. And it is good for us to take these opening few minutes to just to use our imagination in a wholesome way, to imagine that we're part of a community and part of a lineage of human beings that have the good fortune to have some space in their lives to be more reflective, not completely overwhelmed by survival and safety issues. So we have this good fortune to be reflective, and in a way, because we have this good fortune, we can listen, we can receive the cumulative practical wisdom of our ancestors. And especially at this time where information is more widely available than previous generations, it really isn't, an exaggeration to say that we can access the most useful, hard-won human common sense, right? We don't have to make the same mistakes that humans tend to make over and over again, acting out our more, I'm not sure what the correct word would be, but just sort of that instinct to survive at all costs, let's call it that, which, may buy us some more time in this body, but can lead to just tremendous stress for ourselves and everybody around us if we're living with that kind of fear and that kind of greed, living for our own sort of well-being or our own concern alone. So settle in for our sitting time, and since the beginning of the year, we've been using the first few minutes to do a reflection, this traditional reflection on the refuges and precepts. And as many of you know, it's a formal recitation of taking refuge in the Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha, and then reciting the 5 precepts, which are just ways of deeply valuing non-harming. But instead of doing the traditional recitation, I've just been going through a reflection out loud so that over time, for those of you who are new, but for sure for those of you who've been around for a while, you want to feel empowered to do this reflection in a meaningful way. In other words, how might I put aside some time when I get up in the morning to bring to mind what is in fact a refuge for me? What do I trust putting my heart on? What understanding, what way of being do I trust? And so traditionally, as someone interested in the teachings of the Buddha, we frame it as Buddha, taking refuge in Buddha, Dhamma, Sangha. These 3 words, they represent, Buddha represents being awake, being open, really relying on the inherent sensitivity of our heart and mind to see clearly, to feel deeply. And what does this Buddha wake up to? It wakes up to the way it is, this churning, flowing of causes and conditions, our experiences, our circumstances, internal, external, what we're thinking, what we're seeing, the touches we're feeling. So Buddha wakes up to Dhamma. We could call that being intimate, being clearly aware of the way it is. And that allows for the 3rd refuge of Sangha, so that our activity, the choices we make, the way we think, the way we speak. It comes out of the intimacy, trusting that intimacy of Buddha, waking up, being aware of Dhamma the way it is. And the more we trust these three refuges, the more we value, deeply value non-harming. Not as a kind of oppressive should. I should be a good person. I shouldn't cheat. I shouldn't do things that cause harm. It's really a direct, probably the most direct way to feel good as a human being is to commit to this non-harming. Dana and Sila, right? The Buddha made a big deal. Like his basic response to people who didn't have a lot of spiritual inclination, they were human beings who just wanted to feel better in life. He would tell them to practice, to develop Dana and Sila. The practice of giving and the practice of, I'll put it in a more provocative way, moral restraint. But it's like today I'm going to talk about letting go or giving up as sort of the foundation of the path the Buddha taught, like how to give up and the value giving up. So moral restraint is just one more obvious way of giving up. We're giving up simply acting out the biggest habit energy that's been triggered. And we're able to restrain ourselves. Like, I wish I had restrained myself. I wasn't terrible, but recently I heard myself saying something that I'm not really sure was the right thing to say, or the right way to say it, or with the right tone of voice in the way that I said it, right? And so there was something left over, some remorse and concern after having said what I said. And the power of restraint is like, and I was sort of aware of the impulse to speak, and had the force of restraint been stronger, that wisdom of restraint, this is sila, this is that Pali word for the happiness of restraint, the liberation of restraint. It's like a superpower. I don't have to act out every impulse that I have because I have the superpower of restraint. I can feel the impulse to say something, and I can be with that feeling, what it feels like to want to say something. And because I can be with that impulse to speak, I have this pause to reflect on whether it's a useful thing to say or not. So restraint doesn't mean that I'm not going to say something. It just means that I have this capacity, this freedom to be with the impulse, to feel it, to be relaxed. So then in that space, the mind or wisdom can assess, I wonder what this saying this might set in motion in my heart and the world around me. Is it a useful thing? Might there be a better something to say? Maybe if I pause for a few more seconds, there'll be more information about what's playing out right now. I might get clearer, for example, about my own triggering, my own activation, so that what I'm saying isn't just a result of my not wanting to feel what it feels like to be activated. Maybe I can make peace with that activation. And then the words I'm about to speak aren't a way of me masking the pain of my activation, but actually my words can be more an act of generosity, an act of healing, like saying something that's a gift or that's in the service of healing. Not that we'll always get it right, but at least the motivation will be in that direction. So it's really important that this formal taking of the 5 precepts, I undertake the training to refrain from harming and killing living beings. I undertake the training to refrain from taking what hasn't been freely given. I undertake the training to refrain from sexual misconduct, causing harm with our sexuality to ourselves or to others. I undertake the training to refrain from using words in ways that cause harm. And we could add to that around wise speech, like causing harm by not saying what needs to be said and causing harm by saying something that didn't need to be said, didn't need to be said at that time, didn't need to be said in that way. Partial truth, not the whole truth. Or maybe it was true, but it was really meant to kind of cause some harm. And the fifth is I undertake the training to refrain from intoxicating the mind in ways that make me careless, more likely to cause harm, to act out in ways that cause harm to myself and others. And somehow to, when we bring up these 5 precepts, to really frame it as a joyful letting go. The power of restraint means I can let go of acting out habits, tendencies that have been triggered just through my engagement in life, exposure. Lots of habit energies are going to get triggered all the time. And to be able to move through life with this power of restraint. And again, it isn't about freezing up. It isn't about participating. It isn't about speaking loudly. It's about having options so that because of restraint, I can feel what's moving in my heart because I'm not immediately acting it out. And that's how we taste what's in that pause. We taste what's moving in my heart, like the impulse to say something or do something. And in that sort of tasting the flavor of the impulse, we get a sense, you know what, it's really coming out of hatred. Or no, it's really coming out of wanting to clarify the truth, wanting to take care of everybody. It needs to be said. And it's not that we will ever have perfect clarity, but we're moving in the direction of more clarity when we have moral restraint, sila. And that's really what these 5 trainings, the 5 precepts are all about. We're building in the power of restraint and we're learning to really value it, like that kind of protection for ourselves and others. It makes us feel good about ourselves, like in a very basic way. This, sometimes in the tradition, it's called the bliss of non-remorse, the bliss of blamelessness. Good, so let's just settle in for our sitting time now. Few easy, deep breaths, make adjustments if you need, and then we'll do our best to settle in to a relative stillness in the body. Eventually allow the breathing to continue on its own. And we'll be learning the Buddha's map, the 16 instructions for mindfulness of breathing. But in particular, we'll be looking at these instructions in the context of letting go, giving up. So when the Buddha asks us to establish mindfulness to the fore and to be aware of breathing in and the physicality of breathing out, we're choosing to give up distractedness by bringing this more exclusive attention to the physicality of breathing in and breathing out. We're practicing letting go, giving up, a sense of being responsible to other sense experiences that are happening. That it's okay to give up the diversity of our experience and simply be aware of the physicality, the sensations of breathing in, breathing out, and in a creative, persistent way, we challenge ourselves to feel the first moments of breathing in and sustaining that interest to the very last moments of the in-breath. Noticing that little gap in the beginning of the out-breath and sustaining interest to the very last moments of that out-breath. And again, a little gap before the next in-breath. And simply letting everything else happen in the background. And we get to practice giving up our habits of mental proliferation, thinking about this and that. Of course, these habits are likely to arise, but we choose to give them up and to simply notice the sensations of breathing in, breathing out with real immediate curiosity, being intimate without needing to manage or control the breathing process. Just let it happen naturally, even if it feels awkward. That's okay. So we're letting go of any interest in anything else except the ordinary experience, the physicality of breathing in and out. And because of the restraint, then we're able to enjoy the pleasure of this simplicity. The mind is secluded from much of our experience, and there's a pleasure that comes with being present with something simple, ordinary, like breathing in and breathing out. Noticing the pleasure of this seclusion, this simplicity. And as we get some simple continuity, the body and the mind will begin to settle more. And that settledness, of course, will change the quality of the breathing. It will become more refined and subtle naturally. So you can notice that as a kind of barometer for the settling, how the breath becomes more subtle. So we're experimenting with this exclusive interest in the simple phenomena of breathing in and feeling the sensations, feeling the sensations while breathing out. And as the breath becomes more subtle, of course, we have to listen more carefully, be more sensitive to notice the sensations of breathing in and out. So we're using this exclusive attention to the physicality of breathing in and out as a strategy to settle the body and the mind and to attune to the pleasure of seclusion. So we want to experiment with just the right kind of efforting, the right kind of persistence that helps the system settle down and reveals the pleasure of seclusion. And it takes some time to find just that right, wholesome kind of efforting. Not too tight, not too loose. And there's definitely this element of persistence, not giving up moment by moment. But it's not tight. And whenever it feels appropriate, we begin to wean the attention off of the exclusive object, the sensations of breathing in and out, and begin to recognize the experience of the whole body. So, more inclusive awareness of the whole body as we're breathing in, and this more inclusive awareness of the whole body as we're breathing out. So, still aware of breathing in and breathing out. But the real object is whole body awareness. And we're willing to let go of any sense of control that the exclusive meditation object might have given us as we feel the whole body as we breathe in, opening to the sensations of the whole body as we breathe out. And simply allowing the sensations of the whole body to be the way they are. As best we can, everything else can be in the background, but we're choosing to be interested in the sensations of the whole body. And we're not playing favorites, like focusing on the pain in the body. Really be interested in the totality of the sensations as you're breathing in, the totality as you're breathing out, nothing being left out. Including all the neutral sensations of the sitting body. Breathing in, experiencing this calm spreading, deepening in the body. Breathing out, experiencing the calm in the body. Wherever you first can sense the calm, and just notice the sense of spreading, deepening. We're not fixing the body, just relating to the sensations with a lot of wisdom, a lot of kindness, letting the body be. And the natural result is a pervasive calm through the body. So we're keeping the calm in mind, and we're letting go of any other experiences that might want to come to the forefront, but instead choosing to keep in mind the sense of calm as you breathe in and as you breathe out. So we're letting go, we're giving up any attention to disturbance, and instead choosing to attend to this sense of calm in the body. Even if it's faint. Now with the next instruction, bringing joy to mind, we'll be letting go of any sense of fixedness, even a strong sense of ground, Because as we're breathing in, as we're breathing out, the Buddha is asking us to pay attention to joy, this movement of joy, this flow, this lightness, this absence of things being fixed. So just sense in your experience of the body and the mind here and now, as you're breathing in, just attuning to any sense of flow, a rush of energy, a lightness. And then as you're breathing out, just attuning to the experience of joy. Again, even if it's quite faint, that's okay. It's really more about the interest, learning to be interested in joy as you breathe in, learning to be interested in joy as you breathe out, and simply let everything else happen in the background. There absolutely are experiences of joy. Even the relaxation of some muscles, that flow of letting go of the tension, is a kind of joy. Learning to keep joy in mind as we breathe in and as we breathe out. It's important to be patient and also confident that there is joy to be noticed, to be willing to be actually curious, interested. And then as things settle a little bit more, we shift from the more bright quality of joy to the more settled quality of ease, the ease of the heart, the ease of contentedness. Breathing in, experiencing ease. Breathing out, experiencing the ease of the heart. Kind of inner relaxation of the heart. The heart is unburdening itself, unburdening itself of any need for things to be different than they are right now. That's the happiness of contentment. So just do your best to keep this ease in mind as you breathe in, to keep it in mind as you breathe out. it's important that we realize, that we trust that it's okay to feel this really healing quality of inner pleasure, even at the same time the world is really broken in so many ways. Our lives, our families, the wider world. Still, it's okay to let the heart experience this quality of ease, to take some time and to let the heart be filled with this important medicine of ease. For this time, it's good to be breathing in, opening to ease, ease of the heart, breathing out, experiencing the ease of the heart. We do this for our own well-being, and we do this as a way of caring for the whole world. So we're learning how to trust ease with each inhalation, with each exhalation. And we express that trust by keeping it in mind, being interested in feeling what it feels like through the in-breath, through the out-breath. Choose to not be interested in what's in the way of ease, but see the ease that's there in the background, the potential for ease even. Keep that in mind. This is the softening and the opening of the heart, the healing of the heart, and the quieting of the heart, and the remaining activity of the mind and heart, the thinking, the emotions. Just observe whatever activity there is from this place of ease and spaciousness, dispassion, and notice how this non-attachment to the thoughts, notice how it allows things to quiet down more and more. So from the place of ease, we breathe in, experiencing any activity. Breathe out, experiencing the activity of the mind. And breathing in and out and noticing how it's quieting. How the mind doesn't need to be so dependent, so pushed around by thought. And it's not so much about trying to quiet the mind, the thinking mind, but more just noticing that the mental activity is quieting naturally. And as we begin to breathe in and experience the space of the knowing mind, the space of the present moment, we practice giving up objects of experience and just notice the space of the present moment instead of the activity of the body and the mind. The space of here and now as we breathe in, as we breathe out. The beautiful, peaceful, quiet space of the here and now. And allowing any sense of I, me, or mind to fall away, to abide here in the space of the moment. It doesn't require any selfing whatsoever. Merging, absorbing into this simple, beautiful, quiet space. Bright and still. And take a little time adjusting. Nice to be with everybody today, and just a potent time as spring comes in and COVID is spiking and vaccines are happening, and on top of all of this, the trials of our officers involved in the killing of George Floyd happening here in Minneapolis. So a lot of activation, and of course different for all of us given our locations and our sensibilities and our life experiences, but just acknowledging all that's moving in our own hearts and around us. And the resonant conclusion is, always should be, it's not easy being a human being, a sensitive human being living in a world where all of our hearts are conditioned by our genetics, all of those millions of years of reptilian and fish and mammal conditioning, right? And then we're the recipients of all of that. And then we have on top of that all of our cultural conditioning. And we get a world like this, where there's a lot of injustice and violence, and it's our share of beauty and goodness as well. And one of the takeaways from our sit is, the theme today, the 16th step, is all about giving up, letting go. And there's really a pervasive misunderstanding about letting go in a Buddhist context. And it just doesn't seem to want to go away. And I think that's good, because then it gives us a chance to keep talking about it. And it's more than just in the Buddhist tradition, it's part of human culture, this, I think, wrong turn in terms of spiritual practice, which is, boy, the world having a mind and body, it really sucks, because there's so much injustice, there's so much suffering, there's birth and death, there's aging, there's sickness, there's any number of ways power misuses its power, right? And because we want to survive, and we want to be on top of the heap, and we're afraid. And so a kind of common riff in spiritual life is like, get me out of here. And so there's a lot of versions of transcendence that we see in human culture, like not really wanting to have a body, not really wanting to have responsibilities, not really wanting to be complicit in what's going on here. Like, oh, that's your problem, that's somebody else's problem. Not really wanting to take responsibility. I mean, just in simple ways, like in our important relationships. And we can, in moments, have a sense that, the person I'm in a relationship, we really haven't taken responsibility for keeping our relationship healthy. But we don't really want to go there, because to go there might mean we have to unpack some stuff, and that might be a lot of work. It's going to be messy. I don't know what the outcome will be. I'll just let this slow slide toward disconnection continue. And we do that in so many ways. We do it culturally around these really difficult issues. I mean, I brought up the trial of the officers, but, if we just looked at our recent, last 80 years of racial history in the United States, where it's the habit is to go toward burying the issue, imagining that we're kind of moving in the right direction, and then something happens that sort of brings it more to the fore, and then all of us in our own ways are activated by it, and maybe some changes happen, Maybe they're just temporary, but there's this very deep habit to bury what's difficult to do. So part of what we're doing in our practice is we're giving up that tendency to, you could call it status quo, which is just letting habit energies do their work of just governing the dance of life. And the way we sort of liberate ourselves, move in that direction at least, is we illuminate habit energies. We see them for what they are. How would we know, as a natural process, a natural system, how would we know what to let go of if we didn't see everything that was moving? But remember, the letting go is really how we learn how to be a human being. And this is the shadow that I wanted to talk about. We can think that when we hear about giving up and letting go as sort of a central teaching in the Dharma, in the Buddhist teachings, we can imagine wrongly that, oh, that's the end result. We let go, and that's that wrong turn towards thinking transcendence. Get me out of here. I'm going to let go of my responsibilities. I'm going to let go of being a human being. I mean, it's almost, when you say it out loud, the natural conclusion would be, I guess I'll just kill myself, as if that were the culmination of a good spiritual life, like exiting some way. And, when we bring it to light like this, hopefully it makes sense that, oh yeah, that doesn't lead anywhere. That's just aversion and fear. So the spiritual practice of letting go, of putting everything down, dropping attachments, is in order to pick up. We drop. So when we kind of, in a sense, step back into this embodied reality, we step back in having experienced putting everything down. So the embodiment of our responsibilities and our locations and our circumstance and our personalities, that embodiment, that kind of inhabiting our lives, is informed by having put everything down. There's an old meditation story told in the Buddhist tradition of, really sincere practitioner putting in years and years, at the local monastery, something like that, and having some insight, but not really experiencing the full release of fear, the full release of attachment, able to respond as Sangha, this awakened, loving, compassionate activity, fearless activity. So the person left the monastery, the seeker left the monastery, because they had heard of a famous master, sort of proverbial master, far away in the forests, in the mountains, legendary, but nobody really knew where this person was. Evidently been in the mountains for decades and decades. So he went in search of this famous teacher and spent a long time asking around, where's this person, getting further into the forests and mountains. And all of a sudden, one day, coming down a little path in the mountains was this old person. And from the descriptions that this seeker had been given, knew that this is probably the person. And they were carrying, the teacher was carrying this big bundle of branches, presumably to walk into the local village and sell firewood. And maybe that's how they got their food and made their way in life. So the seeker stops this person, this older person carrying all the branches, and says, you have to help me. I've been practicing for decades. I'm kind of stuck. Please give me a teaching. Please give me a teaching. And so the old person with the heavy bundle of branches on their back, standing there, just releases the straps, and the big bundle just crashes on the ground. And the seeker, the student's mind was pretty ripe, and he got it. You got to let go. You just let go of the burden, put it down. And they had this moment together, student and teacher, where the student gets it, and there's this magic moment of realizing the truth of putting down what needs to be put down. And then after a moment, sharing that space together, the student asks, now what? What do we do with this freedom? And so the teacher grabs the bundle, throws it up on their back, straps it in, and walks into town. And that's a really beautiful simile or analogy for us. Like, we're not trying to get away from our responsibilities as a human being and dealing with the messiness of our human lives and our human communities. And even if we don't survive climate change or don't fix what needs fixing, we are happy. Like, the whole point of any freedom that we realize in our lives, in our practice, in our hearts, is so that we can lean in, that we can more fully inhabit what it means to be a human being. So we don't want to aspire to becoming, and I love this about the Buddhist tradition, there are these other amazing realms. I mean, they're described in these mythological terms, these realms of light and formless realms of love, and, Deva realms that have just pure pleasures, the most refined and beautiful pleasures. But all of that is seen as, a diversion. And, there's pleasantness, and then it ends. And not an answer to spiritual life, to pursue refinement, more and more pleasure in that kind of sensual way. What we really want is the heart's unconditional release, so that the particular conditions don't matter. Whether we're in a hell realm, whether we're in a refined, beautiful realm, whether things are messy or things are simple. Because as long as my heart is dependent on really nice circumstances, I'm afraid. I'm afraid of those circumstances going away. There will be tension in the heart. There will be a contraction in the heart. So, we have these phrases, die before you die, right? So this last instruction, so I'll just review the last 4 instructions. We didn't get there in today's guided meditation, right? We just ended with the 3rd set of 4, experiencing the space, really appreciating the beauty of the space of the mind, the space of the present moment, not the activity of the mind, not the activity of the body, but the space of here and now. And letting selfing cease in that space, because any selfing is just subtle mental activity, where the habit in the thinking mind subtly is to construct a sense, this nice still space belongs to me, it's my piece, I'm here, right? We let that cease because it's not needed. Any of that self-centered activity isn't needed. So in that 3rd set of instructions, we're really learning to trust the stillness, the silence, and let everything else cease, so that the mind, the heart realizes the cessation of selfing. And that really clarifies the path. And then the 4th set is really integrating what was clarified in the 3rd set of instructions, and how by keeping the nature of experience, that it's impermanent and unsatisfactory and not so personal, keeping that in mind leads to dispassion, disenchantment, leads to the letting go, the cessation of selfing, which allows the uprooting, the deeper uprooting of all tendencies to cling, to be tight, to hold. So, one way to sense this training in the fourth set of four instruction is really getting used to non-attachment, the flow, the free fall, the groundlessness of non-attachment. And that's just like on the level of a story. How can I operate in my messy world with responsibilities, with my body, with my conditioned personality? How can I operate? How can it operate free of restriction, free of friction, as a force of nature? And we have little glimpses of this, maybe when we're playing or doing some activity we're familiar with, and we just enter a state of flow where for a few moments there doesn't seem to be a need for the idea of a somebody who's doing the life that's being lived. And that dropping away of kind of a center location of me, we get this exhilarating sense of energy, of flow. And so this has been documented and talked about in different circles, not just in Buddhist circles, for a long time, because it's not that extraordinary of a human experience. I mean, even simple things like swinging on a swing, when we were kids, there's something about the fullness of that experience, when that your abdomen, I don't know what it's probably a technical word for that sense we get when we're in an airplane or when we're on a swing, and that feeling in the gut. But that fullness is so intense that the mind can temporarily forget the sense of self, because in a way it's overwhelmed by a strong feeling, that exhilaration or whatever that feeling might be. And, we might say in conventional language, we lost the sense of self momentarily. So the whole spiritual path that the Buddha sets out is really about how to lose that sense, drop the selfing, so that, operating in a world where we'll, in a relative sense, be unafraid of being a self, being a person in relationship with responsibilities. It's like when we realize that it can be dropped, that it isn't this essential defining truth of our existence, then we don't have a problem being a self. So this is another version of the misunderstanding is we think that I'm a self now, but I have to drop it. And that's what the awakening process is about. But it's really like whatever we mean by self, the path is about getting to know what that experience of self is. It's just a construction. It's a convenience that allows us to sort of do what we call life or civilization, but it's not what we imagine it to be. And that's the falseness, or that's the delusion, that we take selfing, the I, me, and mine, we take it to be more than what it actually is. So the way we clarify that is we make peace with the body, then we make peace with the activity of the mind, the second set of four. Then we kind of really deeply appreciate the space of knowing, the space of the present moment, so we can realize that moment when selfing drops away. And nobody has to do something for selfing to drop away, because selfing is an activity in the mind, in the thinking mind, basically, but it's a very refined activity, way of the mind framing, right? And because it's doing that, it's an ongoing activity, which means it arises and ceases on its own. So you and we don't have to somehow figure out how to stop selfing. We just have to notice that selfing is ceasing all the time. And then it starts up again, and then it ceases. But when we catch that it ceases, then we need to integrate the reality that selfing is just a construction that arises and ceases, arises and ceases. It doesn't point to some permanent essential truth of our experience as a human being. And the way we kind of deepen that integration is in the fourth set is we keep the underlying nature of experience in mind, that it's ephemeral, it's uncertain, that it's unsatisfactory. And that's what really strengthens this quality in the mind of dispassion. You know what? To the degree I'm sensing that there's nobody behind, there's no me behind this that is going to be saved, I don't have to try to use sense experience to satisfy somebody or make somebody safe. So that's what dispassion is all about. It's like, it's not so much I'm giving up, oh, poor me, I'm giving up on sense experience because it can't really deliver permanent safety to me. It's realizing, oh my God, there's nobody that needs to be saved. And that shifts the mind's relationship to sense experience. And that's what that dispassion is. It's just what it is. And that allows the heart to really more deeply integrate and uproot the tendency to cling. And it's sort of like we're learning in our meditation and daily life to hit that place, to touch into that place over and over again. And every time we touch into that place, then our activity of being a person with responsibilities, with circumstances, it's just lighter. This is the Sangha that we take refuge in. Like, how do we become changed the more we touch into the space of letting go, of release? What kind of person do we become? What kind of partner do we become? What kind of citizen do we become? More fearful or less fearful? More dependent or more independent? More capable of doing what needs to be done? Or, more rigid and tight about everything, controlling about everything? So I thought, like, for the small group discussion and homework is just to look at ways that you can do this training, kind of more practical places. So I mentioned at the beginning when I was talking about sila, the morality of restraint. There's also dana, giving, and just sort of any place in your life reframe as an activity of giving. So you're going to walk your dog, and then really frame the putting your shoes on and getting the leash and putting your coat on as like this free giving. Like I'm giving up whatever else I would be doing, and I'm doing this activity. Or contentment, just like learning to be, you see your phone, you see it's not as good as the newer phones, but you practice giving up the attraction to a better phone and being content with what you have. And notice the joy in that letting go of, and it's not like it would be wrong to buy something new. I'm in this place now with my razor, which is kind of dull. I've had it for, I don't know, many, many years. And it's a little painful to shave with it these days. And so I've been like leaning into the idea, oh yeah, these new razors are probably so much better because it's been so long and technology's improved. And yeah, but it's really nice not to need another razor. I probably someday I'm going to get a new razor, but it's like noticing the contentment, like, can this be good enough? Can this be good enough? And really like, oh yeah, there's a satisfaction, there's a joy in being content with what I have. And there's a stress in needing something more, something different. Yeah, just also another way is I mentioned about restraint with our words, and feeling that, sensing that as a kind of liberation. But another one is just around ownership itself, like just reframing everything that you technically own in a legal sense, but just see it as something that maybe you're stewarding or something that is for you to use, but it's not technically, in a real sense, mine. And so if for whatever reason it gets broken or somebody takes it or whatever, it never really was mine. I have this house. Someday it's going to be somebody else's house. I have these objects. They're either going to fall apart or somebody else is going to eventually have them. And to really just have that sense of stewarding everything. Yeah, they're there. I can use it. It isn't wrong for me to use these objects, but I don't want to wrongly see it. In no way actually is it mine. That's just a convention in our language that we say, this is my belt and this is my clock and this is my bell or whatever. So just play with that, like, oh, this is the car that I use. This is the money that I get to use. It's not really my money, but I can use it, but I could give it to somebody else to use. And I don't even know like what to do with it, because this is the thing about having money. We're responsible. It isn't, because we sort of know when we say, oh, it's my money to use for me, we sort of know that's a lie, because the money that we have is just based on so many causes and conditions, which are not personal, that some of us have money and some of us don't have money. And so we don't really get away from the responsibility of using the money in a way that takes care of everybody. And that's sort of stressful. It can be stressful unless we reframe it, that's what we get to do. Like, we're the steward of this money, just like we're the steward of our privilege and our power and our whatever, our health. So what am I going to do with it? What am I going to do with my health? And I thought for those of you who are able to stay for the small group today, it might be nice just to share about moments of delighting in letting go. Like, some of you are parents, and either we let go when we're parents because something gets ripped out of our hands, like the idea that I have my Saturday morning to do what I want. Well, that just gets torn away from us because the kids are asking us to do this and that. And so eventually, wiser parents, they learn to go with it instead of every Saturday morning having this sense of freedom to do what I want being ripped away from them and forced to, go with the flow with the kids. We agree to let go. We fully participate in letting go. Same with getting married or getting in a committed relationship. We let go of having sex or having intimate relations with other people. And that can be hell, or we can really embrace that letting go, choosing to be content, choosing to go this way. This is like, so in terms of delighting and letting go, it's a lot about how we frame things, our careers, any choice we make means they're choices we haven't made. So do we create a hell realm about the other possibilities, the grass being greener, or do we let go? That choice was made. In a way, the person who was going to do that, they died. Now this is the person, And so what are we going to do with that person? Are we going to say yes? And even in meditation, and concentration in particular, we're letting go. The whole path of concentration, the practice of concentration, is a letting go. We're letting go of what the mind would otherwise be thinking about, proliferating around. So in a way, the person that wants to plan or wants to worry or wants to think, they get to die now in order for the concentration to develop. And it's, really nice when the mind drops this and that. So you might want to just share how you've naturally bumped into experiences where you were delighting, really appreciating the capacity to let go, to give up, to drop and abandon. So I think Nancy is going to be our host for the small groups today. And in a moment, Nancy, I'll make you host, but I just want to announce, so of course there's the practice check-in this afternoon. If you have questions about what I've said, Wynn and I will be there 4:30 Central Time. Stacy McClendon and I will have a practice check-in at noon on Tuesday, Shelley Graff at 9 a.m. on Thursdays, and this week, Ramesh Sairam at 10:30 on Saturday has his practice discussion. So you can join in any of those times. Tuesday evening, 6 to 7:30, Stacy McClendon and Ayo Utende have gathered a number of Black Buddhist Dharma teachers leading truth and justice vigil to help hold space for all that's moving in our country around the trials of the officers who killed George Floyd, and just all of that work we all need to be doing around racial healing or healing of racism. So that's every Tuesday during the trials, 6 to 7:15, I think it is. And please join in for that. And then this Saturday, Mesky, Shelley and I are leading a workshop, how to relate wisely to our sensual lives. So join us for that, 9:30 to 4. You can sign up with our calendar. Time for community discussions, small and large group discussions around this issue of what do we do with sensuality, with pleasant and unpleasantness, and just being sensual beings. So related, somewhat related to what we talked about today.